Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second charitable organization town hall of the year, virtual town hall from the Secretary of State's office. Today's topic is going to talk about professional solicitor and fundraising counsel registration requirements. Directly related to charitable organizations are those that a charity may pay to help fundraise or advise on fundraising on their behalf. And we're going to talk about the different requirements they have today when it comes to filing with the Secretary of State's office. Just a reminder, this town hall is being recorded. By participating in the town hall, you're consenting to the recording that's happening here. The recording will be posted online, usually within a week or so of the town hall, most times within a few days. And it'll show up on the main charity page of our website if you went to sos.maryland.gov. Maryland is spelled out SOS like Secretary of State. sos.maryland.gov. Click on the Charities tab towards the top of your screen. It'll take you to the Charity Division's main page on our website. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see all the town hall recordings from previous town halls, especially the ones from last year, and a few even older than that about very specific things that we're not covering annually. They'll all be there, and you can watch those too at any time. And if you miss something in this one, don't fret, the recording will be posted. Also, charity officers with us today. If you haven't you go along, please feel free to put those in the chat box. And But don't answer those questions. If you could, let our charity officers answer those, or we may hold those questions until the end. If there's a trend we're noticing in some of those questions in the chat feature, we may hold those so that everybody can hear them at the end rather than just responding to the chat box. And so please feel free to use that chat feature for questions or comments, but be sure to let our charity officers answer any of those questions or hold them for the end to ensure the accurate information is getting conveyed. And also, if you'd like to turn your camera on, that's great. Love to see those smiling faces. But please do mute yourself during the presentation so that everybody can hear what's being said. We don't get any background noise as well. And an important thing to point out, you see it kind of in bold at the bottom of that first page. Today's town hall will be recorded and posted on the Secretary of State's website. Again, reiterating that point. But the town hall and its recording is provided for informational purposes only. This is not intended to be legal advice. For informational purposes only, not intended to be legal advice. So thanks everybody again for joining us. My name is Michael Schlein, Director of the Charities and Legal Services Division. And just covering, as we usually do on these town halls, quickly here, the law that regulates charitable organizations, charitable giving in Maryland is the Maryland Solicitations Act. It is the business regulation article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Title VI of the business regulation article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and the Code of Maryland, Maryland Regulations, Title I, Subtitle II, Chapter 4. And if anybody ever needs to order, you can actually order copy of the Maryland Solicitations Act if you want it at that link. I know that link says notary on the order form, but you can also order the Maryland Solicitations Act book there if you'd like a copy. It's book format, paper form. So let's get started. And just pointing out at first and emphasizing, there's probably a lot of run charitable organizations on here as well that tune into these. And just as with solicitors and fundraising counsels, charities, online registrations, the online system went live on August 15th, 2022. And I always tell folks, if you've submitted a paper app, don't worry. Don't go online and submit an online app. We'll process that paper app. Online apps tend to get a much quicker review and answer, and you paid and you submitted it. And we have it because it tells you that we have it and it's submitted if you did it online. If you send something in paper, you need to check a status, reach out to us. We'll have some contact information coming up at the end of this town hall for the main charity division email. Communications, including renewal reminders, compliance letters, they all come from the registration system now. They're sent via email. And if your organization's already registered, don't submit a new application. If you're using the online system, there's a way to create an account and a process called claiming your record. Excuse me. And there's user guides that explain how to do that process. So if you've never used the online filing system, you need to file online, you want to file online, don't go submit a new registration, override anything else we may already have, claim the record, set up your one-stop account, claim the record. There's a user guide and even a video guide that it walks you through that process. Also, again, true of solicitors, fundraising councils, and charitable organizations. It's the same record claiming process. And one important point to note on that is that you can only claim your record and successfully set everything up if you're logged in the one-stop, the online filing system, with the email address or record for the organization. So if you've already claimed your record, you're good to file online, you're good to go. But if you've never claimed the record and set up the online account and you're getting stuck in the process, it may very well be that you're logged in with a different email address than we have as the record, in which case you reach out, let us know, hey, this should be the email address or record, and we can update our record so that you can log in and claim the record in one stop and successfully file annual registrations online. So again, don't file a new registration if you've already been registered. You're going to file annual registrations even your first time in the online filing system if you've been registered previously. And if the organization owes part of an annual registration from a prior year, we may request it be sent outside of the online system to avoid things like double payment, especially double payment. We only want you to pay one registration fee for each year, not multiple for each year. So if there's something that's an issue with a prior filing, and again, this rings true whether you're a charity, solicitor, or fundraising counsel, we may reach offline to you to collect it to get you current so that you can file your next filing online. So don't be surprised if you're not current if you see something like that happening. So accessing One Stop, there's a way to create your account. And again, you're going to need to create your account and use the email address or record. One Stop only knows what we tell it to know. And if we've told it your email address or record is one thing, but it's actually another, and you log into One Stop with that other email address, One Stop's going to let you create an account, but it's not going to let you claim any records and file online because it doesn't know that you should be the email address or record, because that's not what's previously. So again, reiterating that point, it's probably the #1 reason folks can't claim a record and set their system up right to file annual registrations online is that they've never done it before. They never told us who the correct email address or record is. And if anybody's noticed, we've been mandating email addresses on the registration form for several years now. And if you've never filed in One Stop, whatever email address you've been telling us on the paper form previously is going to be the email address or record that we have in the system for you. So that might shed some light on why you're getting stuck. But once that record's claimed, you can view your organization's full profile, file your annual registrations, and update the organization's contact information as it changes. And again, that's true whether you're a professional solicitor, fundraising counsel, charitable organization. And again, I mentioned the video guide and the user guide on the prior page there. There's the main charity page right there, sos.maryland.gov, /charities, /pages, /default.aspx. But again, you can get to that link simply by going to sos.maryland.gov and clicking on the Charities tab, and it'll take you right to that link there. If you're a professional solicitor, fundraising counsel, public safety solicitor, and you're trying to file annual registrations, you'll want to use the registration guide for solicitors, counsels, and public safety solicitors. We have a registration guide for those paid fundraisers, and we have separate registration guides for charities filing new registrations and charities filing annual registrations. So we try to break down those user guides to your specific need as much as possible. But those user guides, they have step-by-steps and they have picture instructions. So take a look at them. But again, the most frequent problem we have with claiming the record and getting into filing annual registrations isn't that it's not working, it's that the person trying to do it is logged in with an email address that our system doesn't recognize. So reach out to us if that's the thing and let us know. Let us know what email address it should be so we can update that record and you can successfully claim it and start filing online. A few other tips for using One Stop are our online charitable registration filing system and professional solicitor and fundraising counsel registration filing system. As you can authorize additional individuals to have access to your record on One Stop. And there's a process for that. Once you've claimed the record and you've set everything up, you can actually grant other users access so that more than one of you from the organization can log in and do what needs to be done for the charitable organization or the professional solicitor or the fundraising counsel. And the form is built to ask for what is required based on your answers to each question. Again, this is true of anybody that's filing with us under the Maryland Solicitations Act. The form itself is going to start updating itself based on the answers to the questions on the form. So you want to answer those first few questions on the form first so that it knows what you need and what it should ask you for. Answer those questions and the form will kind of morph from there based on what it is you're trying to file. If you're a professional solicitor or fundraising counsel, the form's pretty linear. It doesn't change a whole lot if it's an annual registration, right? It's based on how you answer. And then, if you have contracts, it'll ask you to attach them. If you have accounting reports, it'll ask you to attach them. But the form itself doesn't change much, whereas Charities registration form changes because your filing requirements differ based on total contributions received. You have registration fees due at a certain amount, and they increase the more contributions you receive. Audit and review thresholds that are dependent upon contributions received. So the form is going to grow as you answer questions. Answer those first few questions in the form to get it moving. Don't try to skip to the bottom. It may not ask you for everything you need. So fill out that form. And if you don't fill something out, it'll kind of yell at you, so to speak, right? It'll send you back to the thing you left blank and make you answer it. If you're a professional solicitor or fundraising counsel, filling out your solicitor or fundraising counsel form and you have contracts with Charities, it's going to ask you to attach them. And if you've submitted a registration and as a solicitor or counsel and you get a contract tomorrow with a new charity, no problem. You can pop into the system and add that new contract at any time after you've gotten it. So just because you registered today as a solicitor or counsel doesn't mean that if you get a new contract tomorrow, you can't pop in and add that contract. You can add a contract at any time as a solicitor or counsel to your registration profile just by popping in and adding that contract. You don't have to wait till next year. You don't have to do anything offline. You just add it online. For professional solicitors, if you've entered a fundraising notice and contract into the online system, it'll prompt you for the interim accounting report when you file your next annual registration. If you're here on behalf of a professional solicitor, you probably are well aware of the interim and final accounting reports that are due to us after your contract for fundraising for a charitable organization expires. And if you put the notice into the online system, then the online system is going to know you have an interim accounting report due when you file annually. So it'll help you file those when necessary, help you not forget to file those when necessary, and it'll remind you to file it when your contract is expiring. Even if you extend your contract, you can pop into that fundraising notice previously submitted and update the expiration date of that contract so it doesn't try to make you file a final accounting report if it's being extended and you're only needing to file interim accounting reports. If you've never put if it's an older contract where you sent us a fundraising notice on a paper form and the contract on the paper form back in the day, the online system's not going to know you have a accounting report due, in which case you just drop us the paper form for now until that contract expires. But let's start getting them online. And for name changes, if you have a name change as a professional solicitor or fundraising counsel, you'll have to send us documentation offline. The system's not going to let you change your name. That's one of the things we want to make sure that if it's getting changed, we have the supporting documentation to show that the name has changed. and the organization, the Fundraising Counsel of Solicitors, operating under that new name, and then we'll make that change on our end of the system rather than you making it just at any time. So, and the same is true for charitable organizations. If you change your name, you reach out to us offline and you give us a name change documentation and we'll update it at that time. And if you're submitting annual registrations for multiple years, you'll need to submit separate registration for each year. Pay attention to the due dates that appear at the beginning of forms. If that due date's old, that means we think we're missing something, right? If we think you're only current until December of 2022, that means, as far as we know, we haven't gotten anything in a little while and we're missing some stuff. So if you've been operating all along, you probably owe us more than one annual filing. And knowing that there are probably a lot of folks from charitable organizations on here as well, same thing applies to you. If you're looking at the one-stop form in the system, you create a new annual registration form, and the renewal date at the top of the form that generates is past due, that means we think you're late. That means we think we're missing at least something from a prior filing to make you not current. If you see that and you don't know what it is, reach out to us and ask us, hey, I see this renewal date, it's late, it's old, I thought I was current, or I know I'm missing stuff, but what am I missing? What do I need? And we'll tell you what it is that we need to get you current. And so that date there at the top of the form is helpful because it tells you, do we think you're current or not? You may think it's wrong, but we may think it's right. We may not know. So reach out to us and let us know if you got an old renewal date on there, because we probably think you owe something to get current. And related to that is, if you start a renewal form, again, solicitor, fundraising council, charitable organization, if you start a form and you submit it, make sure you're on the lookout for us letting you know it's good or that it needs changes. Folks will submit a form and we may have to send it back because there's a problem or an issue or a question to have something updated, changed, fixed, or something correction to something that's attached. And if we send it back, you get an email from the system saying that. Make sure you're checking your email on your spam folder, because you're going to get an email back after you've submitted. It's going to say, hey, you've submitted it. And then after it's approved, you're going to get one that says it's approved and have your next renewal dates. Or if there's a problem, you're going to get an email saying we got it, but we have questions, issues, and something needs to be updated. Read those emails. Don't just assume because it's sent, it's done. If it's incomplete or wrong or there's an issue, we're going to send it back and ask you to update in the system and resubmit it. So be on the lookout for those. And if you've started every now and then when people are using a new system, they might accidentally create multiple renewal forms. Well, once you've submitted your annual registration and you're current, get rid of any old draft forms sitting around in there. Don't let any old draft forms hang around, because the form itself, when you create it, the due date at the top of the form is from whenever you created it. So that's also what sometimes used if you were a charity to demand late fees, because if you're past due, you might owe a late fee if you're a charitable organization. Fundraising councils and solicitors don't have that late fee issue, but don't have a bunch of draft forms sitting around in the system. Once you're filed and you're current, get rid of any of your drafts, and you can do that just by scrolling to the bottom of the form and hitting discard if it's in draft mode. And that'll help you for future filings, because if you're filing forms you created a year or two ago, the form has already been generated, and the form may not know that you've since rectified whatever filing issue it is that you had. So make sure you don't have a bunch of drafts floating around. Don't pick up a draft from last year, throw it out, and start a new one if you're just filing a regular annual registration. So a lot of rules of the road there. I know that. If you're ever unsure, reach out to us at this email address here, dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov. And but again, trying to just get some baseline information in here for folks using the online system. Professional solicitors and counsels is who the rest of this presentation is geared to, but these 3 pages here are true of charitable organizations just the same. So let's say you're a professional solicitor or a fundraising counsel. What are your registration requirements? What do I do? So a fundraising counsel, first of all, what is that? It's a person who is compensated for advising a charity about a solicitation in Maryland, or holding, planning, or managing a solicitation in Maryland. The Fundraising Council is prohibited from directly soliciting or receiving contributions. The registration is filed annually, and each registration expires on the first anniversary of its effective date. So a fundraising council, somebody that advises a charity in Maryland, or helps with holding, planning, or managing a solicitation, but doesn't actually directly solicit people on behalf of the charitable organization. That's a fundraising council. The council's registration is something that's filed every year. So if you were to file today for your first registration, and we approved it today, your registration would expire on the first anniversary of its effective date today, so a year from today. So that's how the fundraising council registrations work, and it's the same with professional solicitors, public safety solicitor registrations. They expire on the first anniversary of their effective date. So different than a charitable organization whose due date is related to when its fiscal year ends. So charities are fiscal year related filing dates. Fundraising councils, professional solicitors are not. It's just based on when did you file. Your stuff is due a year from the effective date of that registration. Applications to register as a fundraising council. So on the form provided, which again, there's an online form. Why are online forms nice? Can't miss a question, right? If you don't fill it out or don't answer it, it's going to tell you need to answer it before you submit it. So you generally have a better quality filing using the online forms, and that's true across the board. For the most part, a better quality filing with the online form because it doesn't let you miss things. Still things you could do wrong possibly, but it doesn't let you miss answers or attachments. A fundraising council in the form provided, and it's a $250 fee to become a fundraising council. That is a $250 fee, whether you have one contract or an infinite amount of contracts to act as a fundraising council. $250 every year to register as a fundraising council. And so you must be registered prior to providing those services to a charitable organization. So you need to be a registered fundraising council before you can act as such on behalf of an organization in Maryland. And if you have fundraising agreements already in place, you would note that on the online form, and it would request that you attach a copy of that contract. And if the fundraising council does not have current fundraising contracts, you can submit a sample contract with the form. And the fundraising council is going to have to let us know the names of each current officer and employee. And anybody new must be submitted within 10 days after employment begins. So you're going to give us those names, and you're going to list them on the form itself as part of what you're submitting. So you'll be able to get the options to add another. Folks that are filers on the charity side are familiar with us from our board list. We ask you on the online form to just add, enter your board list on the online form itself. Enter all those board members on the online form itself. You just click add another till you've entered them all. So similar feature here on the fundraising council side with names of current officers and employees of the organization. So submission of any fundraising agreements. Fundraising council is required to submit a copy of each fundraising agreement, i.e. contract, by the 10th day after the agreement is made or the start of charitable solicitation, whichever is earlier. So if you come into an agreement today, you have to have submitted that by the 10th day of that agreement, so the 10th day from today, or the start of your charitable solicitation, whichever date is earlier. So if you're going to solicit 5 days from now, you would have to have it in before the start of soliciting. But if you weren't going to start soliciting for a month from now, you could have it in within 10 days from now, right? 10 days after the agreement is made or the start of charitable solicitation, whichever is earlier. All agreements between fundraising councils and charitable organizations shall include the names and addresses of the parties involved, the services to be provided, the number of persons to be involved in providing the services, the time when those services are going to be provided, and the method and formula for compensation. So all those things should be in that contract between the charitable organization and its fundraising council. And the fundraising counsel is prohibited from receiving compensation based upon a percentage of charitable contributions received as a result of the services provided. So fundraising counsels are not going to get paid a percentage of the total money brought in from that fundraising campaign. Other compensation methods, a lot of times we'll see here's the fee for your services as a fundraising counsel, a flat fee, not so much, and can't be based on the percentage of total contributions that were brought in. So a professional solicitor, a little different than a fundraising counsel. Professional solicitor is compensated for advising a charitable organization about a charitable solicitation, holding, planning, or managing the solicitation in Maryland, or soliciting or receiving contributions for the charitable organization. So what's the difference there? The professional solicitor is directly soliciting folks on behalf of the charitable organization. It's out there making the phone call. It's making the ask on behalf of the charitable organization to the public. The solicitation or receipt of contributions is the distinction between that fundraising counsel and professional solicitor. So the professional solicitor is out there actually asking. The fundraising counsel is maybe helping hold, plan, manage, advising, right, but not the actual ask for the contribution itself. Same is true for solicitors as counsel. Registration expires on the first anniversary of its effective date. So same rules with the registration due dates for solicitors as fundraising counsels. Unrelated to fiscal year or tax year, related to when you filed and when it's effective. If you were approved today and it's effective today, your registration as a professional solicitor next year is due a year from today. Applications similar to fundraising counsels, you have to register prior to soliciting in Maryland or receiving contributions from Marylanders. Registration includes an application form, but also a surety bond. The registration fee for professional solicitors is $350. And this is true, again, whether you have one contract as a professional solicitor or an infinite amount. Your annual registration as a professional solicitor is $350. And if this is an annual filing, if this is something you're filing, you've been registered and this is your due date to re-register or annually register, you would be giving us, as part of your annual registration, any interim accounting reports that are due for any active contracts you have with the charitable organizations. So again, what's good about the online system, if you enter the contract and fundraising notice as a professional solicitor into the system's going to know every time you file annually, oh, we need accounting reports for whatever organizations have active contracts. So it helps save you from forgetting that that's a thing that has to be done annually. And if same as a fundraising counsel, submit a sample agreement if you don't have any actual agreements with charitable organizations on whose behalf you're acting as a professional solicitor. A few other things about professional solicitors. I mentioned the surety bond must be in the amount of $25,000 under the state of Maryland in lieu of a surety bond. The Act authorizes a $25,000 irrevocable letter of credit. And I think we've almost always seen surety bonds. And the solicitor must have either the surety bond or irrevocable letter of credit enforced as long as the registration is in effect. An application to register must list the name of each officer, agent, member, associate solicitor, employee who works in fundraising, and the names of the officers, agents, associated solicitors, and employees must be submitted within 10 days after the individual begins employment. So similar thing to counsel on the names of officers and such. Different though in the sense that a professional solicitor does have to be bonded in the amount of $25,000. They're usually getting those bonds from an insurance company. So as long as it's a surety bond in the amount of $25,000, you would submit that as part of your registration as a professional solicitor. And as long as we have that as part of that registration and everything else is good, we would accept that registration. So an annual registration, very similar to the first one, right? A lot of these things on this list are pretty much the same. $350 every year. Surety bond, attach it as part of every annual registration as a professional solicitor. List of all the people working in the fundraising, officers, agents, associates, solicitors, employees. Interim accounting reports. This is the big difference between a fundraising counsel and a professional solicitor. Interim accounting reports. If you have a contract and it runs for a few years, every year you file your annual registration as a professional solicitor, you have to give us an accounting report, interim accounting report, for each contract that you have with a charitable organization. So if you have contracts with 5 charities and they're all active and ongoing, and you're filing your annual registration today, you should be giving us an interim accounting report for every charity with which you have a contract as part of that annual filing. And again, online form works better because it makes sure you give us the interim accounting reports for each organization that you have to give us, you're required to give us as a professional solicitor every year before you go file. And again, annual registration on the first anniversary of its effective date. Common mistakes we see, this is true of a lot of filers, right? Failing to timely file stuff with us. So timely submit the contracts. If you got a contract and you're a solicitor, get in there, do the fundraising notice, attach the contract, let us know that the contract's in effect, submit it in a timely manner. We're not submitting all the required attachments or addendums. If your contract expires tomorrow and you don't let us know that it's been extended for another year, then we would have no way of knowing it's been extended for another year. We may be asking you for a final accounting report because we didn't know that it was extended. So we need to know if it's extended. Give us the addendum to the contract that extended if that's the situation that you find yourself in. We're not providing scripts or texts of charitable solicitations with the contracts. There's a section of the Maryland Solicitations Act that requires a text that a professional solicitor or associate solicitor uses in a charitable solicitation to be attached to the agreements. Professional solicitors fundraising agreements. So again, some specific things about charity contracts with professional solicitors. Again, must be submitted by the 10th day after the agreement is made or the start of the solicitation, whichever is earlier, same requirement as the counsel. And again, mentioning the text that's going to be used shall be attached to the agreement and shall include a few items that must be said as part of any solicitation by a professional solicitor. The text of a solicitation must include the charitable organization, the name of that charitable organization for which the solicitation is made, the specific purpose that's to be advanced with this charitable solicitation, and a statement that the person who solicits the charitable contributions is a paid fundraiser, and on request will provide a copy of the charitable organization's financial statement. So there's a few things that must be disclosed by a professional solicitor when they're calling on behalf of a charitable organization. These are those things that need to be said when a solicitor is calling on behalf of a charitable organization. Also good things to know as a charity, right? As a charity, what are the person I'm going into contract with to raise money on my behalf, what are their requirements? So all important things to know. Submission of fundraising agreements, that agreement between a professional solicitor and a person that may be engaged to receive or hold contributions resulting from that professional solicitor's fundraising shall be attached to any fundraising agreement submitted to the Secretary of State. So there are organizations commonly referred to maybe as a Cajun company. Solicitor may do fundraising on behalf of a charity, and this particular company may receive the contributions generated from that fundraising activity from the professional solicitor. So if there's a contract in place between the solicitor and that Cajun company, we would want to see that as part of the contract so that it's disclosed and known where those donations are being sent to or who's processing those. All agreements between professional solicitors and charitable organizations must include the names and addresses of the parties, the minimum percentage of gross receipts from charitable solicitations that will be used by the charitable organization exclusively to advance its charitable purpose, and the text that a professional solicitor or associate solicitor will use in each charitable solicitation. So minimum percentage of the gross receipts for charitable solicitations. So what at a minimum would the charity be getting as a part of this professional solicitor's fundraising? So we need to know that minimum percentage. A few other things about professional solicitors and their fundraising notices and fundraising agreements. Before starting a public solicitation for a charitable organization, the professional solicitor must submit a fundraising notice for each fundraising campaign. The fundraising notice requests information about the type of fundraising method to be used and the dates for each fundraising campaign. And the fundraising agreement must be submitted with that fundraising notice. So fundraising agreement, long way of saying contract, must be submitted with that fundraising notice. So the professional solicitor is submitting that fundraising notice, not the charitable organization. Required to submit a copy of the fundraising agreement, just covered that. Submit a copy or copies of subcontracts or other contracts that are in furtherance of that agreement between the charity and the solicitor. So again, if you have a company that's being engaged to receive and count those contributions, so to speak, that contract that exists between the solicitor and that third-party company needs to be included with the filing of that fundraising notice or fundraising notice form. Includes a submission of any of those caging agreements. Again, mentioned what that is already. Agreement between a solicitor or charity and a person engaged to receive or hold contributions resulting from that agreement. So, and this fundraising notice for professional solicitors, not to be confused with the exempt organization fundraising notice form submitted by charitable organizations that solicit but receive less than $25,000 per year in charitable contributions. What we're talking about today here, the professional solicitor requirements, not necessarily the charitable organization's requirements. Although, as I've referenced a few times, some of this stuff goes hand in hand. This is a different fundraising notice form specific to solicitors, not the exempt organization fundraising notice form, which is specific to annual filings for charities that bring in less than $25,000 a year in charitable contributions and don't have a professional solicitor. So accounting reports, I've referenced them a couple times. A professional solicitor is giving us accounting reports. Fundraising counsels do not have to give us accounting reports. Professional solicitors are required to submit a final and interim accounting report. Reports account for funds received and dispersed during certain time periods of the fundraising campaign. The same accounting report form is used for interim and final reports. And you're just going to indicate as the solicitor when completing the form if this is a interim accounting report or a final accounting report. Final accounting report is required within 3 months after the end of the fundraising campaign and must account for all funds received and dispersed during the entire fundraising campaign. Professional solicitor and the authorized representative of the charity must sign and certify the accounting report. So it's going to ask for the charity to sign on the dotted line, so to speak, for the accounting report, because the charity needs to be verifying this is in fact what the solicitor raised on our behalf, and this is how much we got versus how much went to the solicitor. Interim accounting reports must be submitted with an application to register. So for each ongoing fundraising campaign, the interim accounting report accounts for all funds received and dispersed from the beginning of the campaign through a date within 3 months of the organization's registration expiration. So if you're a professional solicitor and your registration expires today, you have to give us interim accounting reports. The numbers on that accounting report should be current as of 3 months from today, if that's when your registration is due. So that's how you know how to measure that as a professional solicitor. And really, again, as a charitable organization, that if you have a professional solicitor, may have to sign off on one of these. Again, it's for professional solicitors, not for fundraising counsels. So a few other things here on professional solicitors. They have to keep certain records according to the Maryland Solicitations Act. So for each fundraising drive, campaign, or event, the professional solicitor must keep the following records. And then just kind of briefly going down this list: compensation received for services rendered and the expenses incurred, name and address of each solicitor, associate solicitor, so whoever they're employing to call on behalf of the professional solicitor who is engaged to raise money on behalf of the charitable organization, amount of compensation paid to each of those associate solicitors and when they were paid, name and address and phone number of each person solicited who made a pledge or a charitable contribution, date of each solicitation, each amount pledged or contributed, and if a refund was requested by somebody, the date that refund was made. So these are records, again, professional solicitor records that must be kept, in relation to each contract that they have with a particular charitable organization. And these records shall be kept for at least 3 years after the end of the fundraising drive, campaign, or event. So if the fundraising drive, campaign, or event, if that contract doesn't expire till next year, those records would have to be kept until 3 years after next year, right? 3 years after the end of that fundraising drive, campaign, or event, if you're a professional solicitor. So something we haven't touched on too much other than just referencing it is public safety solicitors. That's somebody raising money on behalf of a public safety organization. Public safety solicitor is required to register and disclose certain information as well. What's a public safety solicitor? What makes it different than professional solicitor? Well, it's somebody who for pay solicits or receives public safety contributions. So instead of charitable, they receive public safety contributions. So there's a section of the Solicitations Act that specifies what is a public safety contribution. And what it is money raised on behalf of a public safety organization. What's a public safety organization? Think local volunteer fire company, right? That's a public safety organization. Maybe a local police FOP lodge or something, or professional firefighters organization. They're an organization that's members are in the public safety field and they're raising money for the purpose of that organization's goals and missions and members. So I always tell folks, think of your local volunteer fire company. They raise money to support the volunteer fire company services and things of that nature. So if they hire a solicitor that's going to function like a professional solicitor, they would have to file with us as a public safety solicitor instead of a professional solicitor, because they are soliciting for public safety contributions rather than general charitable contributions. So public safety solicitor is it's different requirements, but it's like being a professional solicitor just specifically for public safety organizations. And they also would file an application to register. Public safety solicitor would also have to be bonded in the amount of $25,000 or have the irrevocable letter of credit. They have to submit a copy of any fundraising agreement with the public safety organization. And they would pay a $100 application fee for each application. The way the law is written, a public safety organization is filing a separate registration for every contract they have. So if you're with Volunteer Fire Company A, you submit an application, pay $100 for that. If you also have one with a second one, you'd submit one for Company B, Company C, separate application, separate $100 fee for every contract that you have with a public safety organization. So the application fee, $100 each. However, that surety bond would be good across the board. You don't have to submit a separate surety bond for every contract you have, just a separate application and $100 fee. So this is the only one really where the fee structure is a little different. And we mentioned counsels and professional solicitors, the flat fee per year. Public safety solicitors, $100 for every application you're submitting, which is really $100 for every contract that you have and for which you have to submit an application annually. Public safety solicitors with current registration, they're not required to submit additional surety bonds. So I just mentioned even if you have 3 contracts, you just need the one surety bond. You don't need a separate surety bond for each. And their registrations expire on the first anniversary of the application's approval date as well. So as a public safety solicitor, you could have a few anniversary dates by which you're due, right? Because you could have contracts with public safety organizations that were signed and submitted at different times. So each one of those would have their own due date a year from the day we approved it. A little harder to track as a public safety solicitor, but that's how that would work. So a few things to know about public safety solicitations. All written solicitations and receipts for public safety contributions must include certain information, and really just the toll-free number of the public safety solicitor within a local area code in which the contribution is being solicited, so that folks can reach out and make inquiries or complaints. Statement that for cost of copies and postage, information submitted to us under the Maryland Solicitations Act is available, and the address and telephone number of our office. Public safety solicitors may not solicit public safety contributions unless the script of an oral solicitation and a copy of a written solicitation is approved by the public safety organization on whose behalf they are soliciting. So that solicitation, it includes the specific purpose that is to be advanced with the public safety contribution, and a statement that the person is soliciting on behalf of a public safety organization. A copy of the approved script of an oral solicitation, a written copy, and a copy of a written solicitation shall be made available to us upon request. So if it's a public safety organization out there soliciting contributions on behalf of a public safety organization, they would have to have this agreement in place. It would have to be approved by the public safety organization before they could go out and raise money on their behalf. So a few different resources that might be helpful to you. This is more on the nonprofit side, but we always make sure we include these if you're a charitable organization on here, been following along just as an interest in what fundraising counsels and professional solicitors are and what they have to do. This particular guide will be helpful to you because these links here are good links for nonprofit resources that exist. And, check them out. Maryland Nonprofits Community Law Center, Maryland Nonprofit Development Center, on their links here. And again, these will show up on the recordings that we post online. And these can also be found on the main charity page of our website as well. And another good resource that folks often don't think about is your local bar association. Your local bar association is a good resource for you if you need legal assistance as a charitable organization. You can reach out to your local bar association. They have a network of attorneys that they might be able to connect you to, that might be able to help your charitable organization, or maybe they specialize in the fields in which you need assistance. So all good resources to have. I mentioned contact information earlier during this town hall, and here's the contact information for the charitable organization division. And again, the website, sos.maryland.gov. You can click on the Charities tab. That's the main phone number, 410-974-5521. The main line to our office. You let them know you got a charity question. They'll send you to the charitable organization division or to somebody specifically in that division to help you out. You can also email dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov, dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov, and that will help you. If you have any questions, reach out to them. You'll get a pretty timely response out of that email address. And I know we've pretty busy time right now for charity filings. Those of you that have June fiscal year ends know what I'm talking about because your extension expired May 15th. So we're working through a lot of registrations right now. And with that becomes a lot of emails and questions, but we're generally pretty quick to respond on that within a day or so. I think right now we're within a day of responding to any emails. So we're pretty current. Usually every now and then we might fall a second day behind or so because it's just get so many emails in a day sometimes. So be aware of that, but email that dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov. And even if they can't answer it, if it's a solicitor or fundraising counsel question, they'll get it in the hands of somebody that can answer it. And that way you get an answer in a pretty timely fashion on a regular basis. And if you ever call and don't get an answer, leave a voicemail, call you back. We're real people. behind these calls. We'll call you back and try to help you out with whatever the situation is. And so don't just kind of call and leave a message. We'll definitely get back to you. We'll catch up with each other and be on the lookout for a call from us if you do leave us a message, so we can connect and help get that problem solved. So before we head into the Q&A portion of this, just again reiterating here, information provided is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be legal advice. And this recording is going to get posted online here within a few days of the conclusion of this town hall here in not too long. And so feel free to check it out, and check it out as early and often as you need to once it's posted. And it'll be posted on that main charity division page on our website. If you go to sos.maryland.gov, click on the charity tab, and you can find those town halls. Just scroll down a little bit, posted there. So appreciate everybody joining today. And then we'll hop on and do some question and answer here in a few minutes. So thank you everybody very much. I appreciate your time in joining us. Thank you.